When I say the word pirate, what pops into your head? Probably treasure chests, talking parrots, maybe a swashbuckling hero with a sword, right? But if you strip away all that Hollywood romance, you're left with a much harsher reality. Piracy is a persistent, powerful, and, yeah, ancient geopolitical force, and it's still shaping our world in ways you might not even realize. So let me just start with a question. If you had to guess the single oldest international crime in all of human history, what would you say? Smuggling? Espionage? Well, the answer might actually surprise you. It's a crime that's been with us for as long as we've been sailing the seas. Piracy. And this is not some historical footnote, okay? The International Maritime Bureau has a very clear, very modern definition for it. This is a serious criminal act. So serious, in fact, that it's subject to what's called universal jurisdiction. Now, what that means is that piracy is considered a crime against all nations. Any country can capture and prosecute pirates, no matter their nationality or where the attack happened. It's a really big deal. And the impact is just enormous. To give you an idea, at the peak of the Somali piracy crisis, around 2011, the annual cost of the global economy was as high as $7 billion. That's with a B. We're talking ransoms, higher insurance, rerouting massive cargo ships. This ancient crime has very, very modern consequences. But here's the thing. Piracy isn't random. It doesn't just happen anywhere. It's a crime that is literally born from geography itself. The very shape of our world, its narrow channels, its islands, its coastlines, it doesn't just allow piracy. In a way, it actively encourages it. I want you to think of it like a recipe. The ingredients for piracy are pretty much timeless. First, you need choke points, right? These narrow straits where ships have to slow down and follow a predictable path. Then you need islands for hideouts and ambushes. The open sea, well, that's your escape route. You also need corrupt ports where you can sell your stolen goods and find more crew. And finally, the most important ingredient of all, desperation. Poverty, famine, political chaos, that's always been piracy's #1 recruiter. And you can see this recipe at work all throughout history. The Greek islands and the Aegean, perfect for ambushing ancient vessels. The Strait of Malacca, today, it has been a pirate hotspot for centuries for the exact same reasons. Geography funnels the world's shipping into a narrow, predictable lane, and boom, you've got a perfect hunting ground. So this brings us to the era everyone knows and loves, the golden age of piracy. But this wasn't just about a bunch of outlaws seeking their fortune. This was an age when piracy became an unofficial and sometimes a very official tool of state policy for some of the world's biggest powers. We're talking roughly from the 1620s to the 1720s. And what fueled it? Massive amounts of gold and silver being shipped from the New World. You had places like Port Royal in Jamaica become the de facto capital of piracy, a whole city basically built on stolen money. That is, until the big navies decided they'd had enough and started to crack down. Now, to really understand this era, you have to know the difference between two key figures. On one hand, you have the pirate, a total outlaw, attacks anyone for his own personal gain. If he gets caught, he's hanged. End of story. But then you have the privateer. Think of him as a government contractor with a license to plunder, but, and this is the key, only from enemy ships. If he got captured, he was treated as a prisoner of war, not a common criminal. And one of the biggest sponsors of this state-sanctioned piracy was none other than Queen Elizabeth I of England. She had this very specific, almost affectionate nickname for her favorite privateer, a guy who brought incredible wealth to her kingdom by robbing Spanish ships blind. She called him "my pirate." And that man was Sir Francis Drake. I mean, think about it. To the English, he was a celebrated hero, an admiral and national treasure. To the Spanish, whose treasure fleets he destroyed, he was just a criminal, a pirate. But to Queen Elizabeth, whose empty treasury he filled up, he was a knight of the realm. This was foreign policy conducted by other means. Okay, let's fast forward to today. The golden age is long over, but trust me, piracy is far from a thing of the past. It has simply adapted, and the global hotspots have shifted. If we look at the data from just last year, the picture is pretty clear. Now, we often hear about piracy off the coast of Africa, right? But the undisputed global epicenter today is Asia. It accounts for almost half of all incidents. Africa and the Americas are right behind, each with their own unique brand of the problem. And each region has a different style. The Strait of Singapore sees a ton of attacks, but they're often what you call low-level, smash-and-grab type thefts. The Gulf of Guinea, off Nigeria, That is far more dangerous. That's where the vast majority of violent kidnappings for ransom happen. Somalia, which used to be the face of modern piracy, has been largely quieted down thanks to a huge international naval presence. And then you've got something totally different happening in South America. And get this, piracy isn't just a saltwater crime anymore. In Brazil, it has moved inland. You have these notorious river pirates known as water bellies who operate on the huge Amazon River network. They attack cargo barges, passenger boats, you name it, and they're costing the country over 100 million reais. That's about 20 million US dollars every single year. So, how do you fight a crime that has existed for over 3,000 years? There's no single magic bullet here. The solution has to be just as complex and multi-layered as the problem itself. To really fight piracy effectively, you need a four-pronged attack. First, you need naval patrols. That's the muscle, the immediate suppression, which works so well in Somalia. Second, and this is the big one, you have to address the root causes on land. Piracy thrives in failed states, so building stable governments and economies is the only real long-term solution. Third, you've got to harmonize international laws about things like putting armed guards on ships. And finally, some are looking at changing the map entirely by opening up new shipping routes. And that brings us to one last, kind of provocative thought. As climate change melts the Arctic ice, brand new, much faster shipping lanes are opening up between Asia and Europe. Right now, those routes are completely pirate-free. But for how long? As our world changes, will this ancient crime just adapt once again? Could we see a new age of piracy in the ice? It's a wild question that shows just how resilient the world's oldest international crime really is.